Hello everyone, my name is AJ, and welcome back to a reading of An Arrangement Was Made by AJ the Wild Wolf. If you have not seen or read the first 3 chapters, please do that now. The playlist will be in the cards, and the AO3 will be in the link tree in the description. With that being said, enjoy. Chapter 4, Preparing to Prepare. Charlie arrived back at the hotel with a noticeable slump in her step. She was completely exhausted. She held it together as best she could until she got to her room and collapsed onto her bed. She began to weep into her pillows. The weight of the decision she had made was starting to sink in. She had just signed her life away. Even though it was to protect her friends, that didn't make it much easier to bear. All dreams of ever having a family of her own were gone. She would never get to marry someone she loved. She would never get to have children of her own unless they came from that filthy man. That was a thought she did not want to have. Charlie was really not looking forward to the sheer volume of arguments the two were going to have. Adam was not an easy person to get along with. He had made that perfectly clear when they first met. Adam was the type of person who liked things one specific way, and he would not tolerate anything else. He was by far the most stubborn person that Charlie had ever met, and horribly annoying on top of all that. And he was going to come to live here? Why couldn't he just stay in heaven where he was out of the way? Why couldn't they be married in the legal sense alone? Why did he have to come here? I guess it's better than me having to go up there, she sighed. Living in heaven didn't sound too bad when she gave it some thought. Everyone up there was so friendly. It smelled lovely, the weather was always lovely, cute animals. She got lost in imagining a different reality where none of this had ever happened. Perhaps there was a reality where Adam was a decent guy. Maybe that version of him had started a redemption program instead of the exterminations. All of Charlie's friends had been redeemed, and Hellborn were allowed to visit heaven on vacations, and angels would do the same with hell. In that version of reality, heaven and hell worked together to make everywhere a lovely place to live. Without the stress of the exterminations around, there would be no need for overlords or territory disputes or any of the numerous reasons why the sinners fought each other. But then Charlie opened her eyes, and she was in reality again. She sighed. Time to get to work. She had 3 days before Adam showed up. She needed to make a plan for how to best utilize the next 3 days so that she could make the best first impression possible. Maybe there was a possibility that now that they were married, he wouldn't be so hostile to her anymore. A low possibility, but any chance to be positive was a chance that Charlie would take. All she had to do was turn up the charm all the way, and maybe, just maybe, he'll like her? Okay, that's a bit of a stretch even for me. Tolerate! Tolerance is good! She hopped into her desk chair and pulled out some paper and crayons to make her plan. Okay, list of things I need to do. I have 3 days. She drew 3 boxes. I need to tell everyone in the hotel that this is going to happen and make sure they're all mentally prepared. I need to get his room ready for him because, like, he's sleeping in here. She shuddered at the thought of him misreading signals and trying to touch her. And then he'd probably get mad when she rejected him. Yuck. She wished she could bleach her imagination. She scribbled her emotions out onto a blank piece of paper, crumpled it into a ball, went into the bathroom, and flushed it down the toilet. That's better. Now I don't ever have to think about that ever again. She returned to her bedroom. Alright, planning. Tell everyone in the hotel, set up Adam's room, make sure everything is clean, should probably have food ready, and tell Dad. She bit her bottom lip and sucked air in through her teeth. She and her dad still didn't have the best relationship. They had gotten to the point where he loved and supported her unconditionally, but there was still a lot of tension there. She barely knew him, and she had gone and married his wife's ex-boyfriend, who he hated without asking him about it first. She scribbled it off her list. Tell all my friends, set up Adam's room, get hotel clean, make food, make sure Dad isn't there. Vaggie, am I forgetting anything? She looked up to the bed where Vaggie normally was when she was planning, but... Oh. She looked back down to her papers. Making food can probably wait until the day of. I'll have to double check what time he's getting here. I guess I should probably set Adam's room up myself. I'm going to need everyone's help to deep clean this place, which means... She sighed. I have to tell everyone. Honestly, she should have told everyone when she first started trying to go down this route, but she didn't want anyone to worry about her. It wouldn't be as bad if everyone didn't include Vaggie, but... this was going to be hard. She was really glad she had decided to put off telling her father until Adam was somewhat settled. Still, this was going to be hard. Maybe it would be better to tell everyone one at a time? But then again, it might be better to just rip the band-aid and tell everyone all at once. That seemed like the best option right now. Get it all over with all at once. There had to be some kind of way to soften the blow a little. She took a deep breath. She went back to her desk, sharpened her crayons, and started drafting some lyrics. Chapter 5. Our Relationship Has to Change. Vaggie stumbled half-blind into an alleyway. She collapsed behind a dumpster. She laid there looking up at the sky, waiting for the pain to subside. She looked at her hand, now stained with golden, glowing blood. She had always wondered what angelic blood looked like. This was one crummy way to satiate her curiosity. What was she gonna do now? She couldn't get back to heaven without her wings. Even if she did, she'd be turned away at the gate for not having a halo. And even if St. Peter recognized her as an angel and let her in, Adam and Lute would just throw her back down. She wished she could say, it could be worse, to try and cheer herself up, but she wasn't ignorant. She knew that things very much could and probably would get worse. She wasn't going to die from her injuries. Angels can't die, and everyone knew that, which meant that if a sinner like the kind Adam had told her about found her, she was in deep trouble. She was almost starting to regret sparing that sinner kid. What if they actually weren't a kid? Maybe they were just so short they looked like a kid. She dismissed the thought from her mind. If she had nothing else, she could at least take comfort in knowing that she had done the right thing. Probably. Vaggie heard the sound of fireworks going off in the distance. Extermination Day was over. Sinners would be emerging from their homes soon. Vaggie needed to find shelter and fast, but she was so tired. Vaggie jolted awake when she heard footsteps approaching her. A tall blonde girl in a red suit was kneeling in front of her. The girl wrapped a bandage around her eye socket and tried to give her a reassuring smile. Vaggie didn't quite catch what she said, but it sounded friendly. The woman helped her to her feet and put Vaggie's arm across her shoulders to help her walk. The girl had the unmistakable smell of a hellborn. That put Vaggie's fears of being kidnapped and tortured to rest. It didn't kill them, but it seemed a little less likely. Vaggie didn't know much about the Hellborn, but it was a safer bet to go with a Hellborn than any sinner. She knew that sinners for certain were bad. This girl had the potential to actually be decent. The demoness had taken her to a beat-up old building. The red wallpaper was ripped up, the carpet stained, there was a leak in one of the pipes that dripped down from the ceiling boards. There was a weird, musty smell that emanated from, well, everywhere, actually. The sparse furniture that was scattered around looked like hand-me-downs of furniture that had been left by the side of the road. Charlie, as she soon learned her name, patched her the rest of the way up, fed her, and gave her a room to stay in. Over the next few weeks, she had gone out of her way to make sure that Vaggie was comfortable when she recovered. Charlie was a miracle made flesh. How Vaggie happened to be found by one of the few demons who didn't recognize an exorcist uniform astounded her. If it had been anyone else... Though Charlie expected nothing in return for her service, Vaggie felt beyond indebted. She owed Charlie her life and so much more than that. She vowed that she would find a way to reciprocate everything. No matter how foolish, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, Vaggie was determined to follow Charlie to the ends of existence until she made it up to her. Later, she promised to go far past that debt. Vaggie was pacing around the entryway. She was horribly stressed. Charlie had barely spoken to anyone since she got home last night. Charlie wasn't acting like herself, and it worried her. She knew that Charlie had been having meetings with someone, but she had been really cagey about the whole thing. It was really out of character. Charlie was normally a huge oversharer. Vaggie worried that this was Alistair's work. She hadn't trusted the freak for a singular second since he showed up, and she certainly didn't trust him now. The demon in question was sitting smugly in one of the chairs near the door, smiling his usual annoying grin, acting like he was so much better and smarter than everyone. "Do you have something to do with this?" she finally asked.
Huh?
Charlie's been acting weird ever since the trial, we've all seen it, but she's been especially weird in the past day. Do you have something to do with this? She demanded. Alistair set his tea down and stood.
Of course not, my dear. I would never dream of hurting Charlie.
That is the weakest lie you have ever told me. The hum came out almost as a laugh.
I really don't have anything to do with this. Not this time. Heartbreak does funny things to people sometimes.
Heartbreak? Vaggie's eyes widened slightly, just enough for Alistair to notice.
Of course, dearie. You repeatedly lied to her for how long again was it? 2 years? 3?
I meant to tell her.
But you didn't. So that doesn't really matter, does it?
Alistair was right. She had concealed her identity from Charlie for a whole 3 years. Why had she been so stupid? Charlie was the kindest and most forgiving person she had ever met. Even among the angels of heaven, very few came even close to being as wonderfully kind as Charlie. Why hadn't she trusted her with this information? Were they over? Vaggie hadn't considered that Charlie might want to break up with her. I mean, come on, this was Charlie they were talking about. Surely she wouldn't break up with her for having been an exorcist. She wasn't like that anymore. She had changed. I should go talk to her. Alistair gave her an unreadable look that Vaggie didn't like as she passed him. He disappeared into the shadows to go do who knows what. Vaggie approached the room she and Charlie used to share. She knocked on the door. Charlie, can I come in? If you want to, was her response. Vaggie took a deep breath and entered the room. The usually spotless room was littered with crumpled papers. Charlie was writing, or maybe drawing, something at her desk near the window. Vaggie closed the door behind her. She sat down on the side of the bed that used to be hers and sighed. She looked at her partner. How was she supposed to start? You seem stressed. Well, of course I'm stressed. She locked eyes with Vaggie briefly before returning her gaze back down to her page. There's a lot happening right now, and I don't know how to feel about it. It seems like even the solutions right now aren't great. Yeah. Vaggie looked out the tall window next to the bed. It overlooked one of the prettier sections of the city. There weren't any fires going today. It looked almost peaceful out there. It reminded her of the view she had back in heaven. If Adam had his way, it would all be ash in a week. Charlie gazed at Vaggie with horrid longing. There was something ever so slightly different about how the light dripped on her creamy gray skin. The way it lit her up like she was the only living thing in the room. How had Charlie never noticed it before? Vaggie had always been the brightest person in the room. She had always thought it was her love for her that made her stand out against everyone else, but no, it was more than that. There was angelic blood at work drawing the light towards her. It was so incredibly subtle, but once you noticed it, it was hard to ignore. Charlie turned her eyes downward when Vaggie sensed she was being stared at. It's not all bad news, though. Vaggie blinked and perked up like a curious bird. Oh? I have found a solution to all of our problems, Charlie announced with a saddish smile on her face. She stood up and gathered the papers she had been working on. Vaggie began to internally panic. She wanted so badly to trust that Charlie had found a solution, but there were always drawbacks. If Charlie was implying that the exterminations weren't going to be a problem anymore, then she had to be sacrificing something immense. What did you do? Vaggie asked hesitantly. She immediately regretted her word choice. It sounded so accusatory. She hadn't meant it that way. I mean, what's going on? She stuttered, hoping that her backpedaling fixed any sort of offense she may have unintentionally caused. Come on, I want to explain it to everyone at the same time. I wrote a song and everything! She lifted up one of her papers so that Vaggie could see that it had music stanzas written all over it. Vaggie visibly relaxed and smiled. This was more like the Charlie she knew, and that made her feel better. Vaggie followed her down to the lounge. It was early in the day, so everyone was still there, and close enough that they could be called in without leaving the room. Charlie got out her whiteboard and some cute snake magnets to stick up the visual aids she had prepared, took a breath, and began her song. You what? Charlie flinched a little at Vaggie's words. And he's moving in tomorrow? Wednesday, Charlie nervously corrected. Does that even matter? Actually, this is a really good thing. It means we'll have enough time to get this place spick and span before he gets here so we can make a great first impression. Vaggie put her head in her hands. She knew that Charlie wasn't really one to think things all the way through before she did them, but this was on a whole new level. Vaggie pressed her fingertips to her temples. What on earth made you think this was a good idea? Vaggie was completely panicking. Adam was very much not marriage material in her eyes. He wasn't even halfway decent boyfriend material. He was going to eat her alive. Angel spoke up. Personally, if it keeps us alive, kiss as many men as you need to, Dolly. Husk audibly groaned at that. Yeah, that's not gonna be happening, Charlie stuttered. Not in the contract, so, yeah. She rubbed her foot against her leg.
I, for one, am very impressed with you, Charlie.
Alistair got out of his seat and came close to pat her on the shoulder.
It's not easy to make such an enormous sacrifice for the people you love, especially when surrounded by such ungrateful company.
He made eye contact with Vaggie. I'm not ungrateful, I'm just... Charlie, can I talk to you alone for a minute? Of course. Charlie followed Vaggie back upstairs. They passed by Penchus on the way up. He seemed to be having trouble grappling with the weight of what Charlie had agreed to. Nifty and the eggs were lost in their own little world, the eggs chasing each other and Nifty chasing bugs and muttering something about another man in the house. Charlie couldn't figure out what Husk was thinking. That poker face of his had become a nasty habit. Vaggie stopped them in a private-ish hallway near the bedrooms. Charlie, I think this is a really bad idea. We don't have many other options right now, Vaggie. No, you don't know Adam like I do. You've only seen a snippet of his cruelty. He will chew you up and spit you out like you're nothing. Have you thought this through at all? Charlie's eye twitched with what looked like anger. Of course I have. I read through the contract very carefully. I made absolutely certain that I had the option to divorce without cause. At any time, I can end our contract. Doesn't that mean that so can he? How do we know he won't end the contract the moment he gets here and slaughter us? Like I said, I read the contract very carefully. I went over the fine print more than once. He can't do that without permission from heaven. How does that work? She asked, genuinely confused. It was extremely uncharacteristic for heaven to write a contract with terms that so heavily favored hell. Since I am a princess, I have the legal right to terminate any contract made with heaven at any time, just like Sarah is allowed to terminate any contract with hell at any time. It's all very technical and complicated. Honestly, I don't completely understand it. But I understand well enough to tell you we're going to be safe. Charlie, he's not going to let us be together. He'll call it cheating, and that could be grounds for divorce. Charlie looked at her with the saddest look she'd ever seen on the princess's face. We're still together, right? Charlie looked down at her hands. Charlie had to stop and take a breath to keep her voice from breaking. I don't think we should be together anymore. No. Vaggie wasn't able to brace herself enough to hear those words. They were words she'd only ever heard in nightmares. She never thought they'd be real. Even if not for the whole marriage thing, I just don't think we can be a couple anymore. You don't trust me, and now I don't know if I can trust you. I do trust you, Charlie. You just now doubted me if I had thought this through, she snapped. She quickly reeled her emotions back in. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to snap. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't have a problem with you being an angel. I think that's a beautiful, wonderful thing. I just wish you would have shared that with me once in the 3 years we've been together. And it just hurts so much to think that for those 3 years, you never once trusted me enough to confide that with me. It makes me wonder what else you don't tell me. And I'm sure you don't have anything else of that magnitude hidden from me, but still, I hate that as of right now, I can trust Adam more to be honest with me than my own girlfriend. That one stung. That one cut deep. Vaggie backed away a few steps. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Her voice cracked. I never meant to hurt you like this. Charlie brushed a tear away from her eye and pulled her into a hug. I love you. Vaggie's eye widened with surprise at the sudden affection. How does she not hate me? Just because we're not dating anymore doesn't mean that we never have to see each other again. You're my best friend, Vaggie. I want to keep being your friend, and I need you now more than ever. Promise you'll stay? Vaggie reciprocated the hug with everything she had. I promise, Charlie. I'll be here for you no matter what. You'll have to kill me to get rid of me now. Charlie laughed and looked at her now platonic partner with nothing but love. We have a lot of work to do. Yeah. Vaggie wiped the tears out of her remaining eye. I'll go tell Nifty. Speak of the devil, the little bug's screechy voice came from the bathroom. Who keeps clogging this thing? I just fixed it! Charlie flinched. Vaggie looked up at her with an unimpressed look. Did you flush regular paper down there again? Well, last time I used marker paper. I thought it would disintegrate this time. Chapter 6. Adam's totally normal house party. Lily, where are you going? The man caught up to his wife, who was angrily stomping dangerously near the edge of Eden's gardens. Away. You can't go out there. He got in front of her with his arms out so that she couldn't get past him easily. And why not? She glared hard at him. He didn't like when her face looked like that.
Sarah told us not to go out there, so we're not going out there. We are staying here.
Sarah told us this. Sarah told us that. Blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Sarah isn't even here. She'll never know.
You won't know that.
He glanced up to see if any of those holes in the sky were open for heaven to spy on them. None yet.
Just because we haven't seen any sky holes in however long it's been, doesn't mean they can't see us.
Lilith gave him an unimpressed look. Adam started to feel as if he had said something stupidly paranoid, but he didn't think he was being paranoid. Why does she have to keep looking at him like that?
Stop looking at me like I'm stupid. I'm not stupid.
Don't tell me how I'm allowed to look at you. I'll look at you however I please. Adam sighed and passed her to go back to the garden.
Come on already. I don't like being this close to the edge.
I'm not going with you.
What do you mean?
He looked back at her. Why wasn't she following? Wasn't she supposed to listen to him? Come on, Adam. Don't you want to see what it's like out there? Her eyes sparkled with excitement. She looked so curious and passionate. He wished she felt that way about him like he did with her.
No, I don't actually.
He looked over her shoulder at the jungle beyond the garden. It looked dangerous. Lilith's expression dropped into disappointed annoyance. Ugh, you're so lame.
What's so lame about following the rules?
Everything! It's like you don't even want to think for yourself.
I don't. I'm good. I'm happy here. We have all the food we could ever want. There's plenty of water. We've got a beach. Why don't we go to the beach? That sounds like way more fun than fighting. We haven't even named all the fish yet.
He gestured in the direction of Eden's beach. You've seen one fish. You've seen them all. Naming animals is your thing. I want to do my own thing.
I really don't think you should go out there. Sarah said there are animals out there that eat other animals.
Only herbivores were allowed in the garden. It was the only safe haven on the planet overrun with huge and deadly dinosaurs. I'm a human, Adam, not an animal. They won't eat me. Her tone was extremely condescending.
Oh yeah, I'm sure if you just nicely ask the T-Rex not to eat you, it'll listen.
You named one?
Yeah, weren't you listening? I told you just the other day that I saw one poking its head above the trees.
She gasped. What did it look like? She bounced on the balls of her heels, all excited.
It looked like a lizard, but huge. It was as big as two of me, and it was covered in feathers like a bird.
Ooh, I want to see one.
Maybe it'll come back.
He tried. Or maybe we should just leave the garden and go find it. And the plan is backfiring. Bad.
Lily, no! Its teeth were sharp. They looked like the pointy rocks inside the cave. It had teeth on its hands and feet, too, like our fingernails, but way bigger and sharper. And it could breathe fire!
Lilith's eyebrows crinkled in thought. She knew that something wasn't quite right about that statement. Once it hit her, it hit like a bag of bricks to an infant's head. You made that last one up.
Okay, fine. But the rest of it's true.
Sure it is. She turned to step outside the garden.
Lilith, come back here!
Oh no! I'm stepping foot outside the garden! I'm going to die in such violent, horrible ways! She hovered her foot above the slimy, grassless ground of the jungle.
Don't do it! No! Bad!
She blew her tongue at him as she stepped out into the dark trees.
That's it! I'm not asking you anymore. Now I'm telling.
He pointed in the direction of the place they normally slept.
Go back to the fire now!
No. I'm going, and if you're too much of a coward to come with me, fine! Stay here and rot for all I care. She whipped around and ran off, disappearing quickly into the thick, vine-covered trees.
Wait, Lilith!
He stepped to the very edge of the garden. He wanted to run after, to make certain she was safe, but he couldn't. He was too scared. He took a few steps back, then turned to go home. He looked over his shoulder to see if maybe she was coming back, but she didn't. He wondered if maybe he'd done something wrong.
She'll come back,
he said out loud to reassure himself of that.
Yeah, we fight sometimes, but Sarah said that's normal. She'll come back. She loves me.
He sat down next to the little fire pit the two of them had made so long ago. He picked up one of the charred halves of a twig and absent-mindedly doodled on the dirt while he waited for her.
We love each other. We'll always love each other.
When Adam got back home, he immediately set about breaking every single glass thing in his house. He had opened the kitchen cabinets and individually threw each one against the far wall until he had dealt significant damage to said wall. He ripped the cabinets off the walls and chucked them off the balcony that overlooked his backyard. They landed with a satisfying crunch. He dumped the silverware on top of them like salt in the wounds for good measure. He felt a little bit better now. Still angry, far beyond what was reasonable, but it was much more manageable now. He went to his room and started packing his stuff. He sighed. He'd have to leave most of it behind. He'd only have one room to put it all in, if he even got a room. There was a chance he'd have to share a room with her, which made him angry.
Don't even get my own space,
he muttered under his breath. He hated her. She was taking everything from him. His exterminations, his purpose, his house, his friends. Oh no. He wasn't going to see his friends again. To them it would be like he was vanishing. They weren't supposed to talk about hell with the regular winners. Everyone kind of knew it existed, but the winners had been specially promised that they would never have to see it. That was for the best. It was such an awful place. It would traumatize the lot of them just to look at it. The burden of knowing fell upon the shoulders of him and his exorcists. Now, only him. If he knew heaven at all, now that the exorcists had no purpose, their memories would be wiped. That might be for the best, too. Knowing what kind of evil lurks below the clouds would give anyone some serious anger issues. He just hoped that heaven wouldn't make them forget him. No one was allowed to miss anyone here in heaven. The winners had all forgotten any family members that ended up in hell. After heaven had seen how much it hurt Adam not to be with Eve, they started wiping memories to keep the pain away. No bad days here in heaven. No hurt here in heaven. It wasn't allowed. Despite all his best efforts, Adam started to cry. He was starting to panic. Everyone he had ever known was going to forget him. His soldiers, his friends, his fans, his kids. It was all over. Everything was over. The life he had built for himself was being ripped away. Everything he'd worked for, all gone. His life was being destroyed so he could be sacrificed to the spawn of his enemies. She would treat him like he was less than dirt. He would be forever surrounded by enemies who hated him. He'd only have murderers and rapists for company. He took his helmet off and scratched violently at his scalp. "Don't cry, Adam," Sarah had said when Eve betrayed him. "You're too old to cry."
Fuck you, I'm in my own house!
He grabbed the closest blunt object, which happened to be his helmet, and hurled it at his bedroom window, which shattered easily under the force. He summoned his axe, left his bedroom, and started wrecking the place. It's not like he was ever going to live here ever again. If by some miracle he wiggled his way out of this marriage, he wouldn't care if his mansion was fully on fire. He would be relieved to be living anywhere other than with her. He was just about to push a piano down the stairs when he heard the doorbell ring.
Oh, great.
He went to quickly grab his helmet from his room, but couldn't find it.
Where the fuck did it go?
He checked out the window. There it was, waiting cutely on the front lawn for him.
Shit.
The doorbell rang again, more insistently this time. He ran his fingers through his hair as he went down the stairs to try and fix himself up a bit. Like he was going to let anyone think he was ugly and unkempt. He was a grown, put-together man. He was fine. He ripped open the door.
What?
He didn't mean for it to come out quite that angry, but it did so, and he's committed to it now. Standing in front of him was Lute with a bag of takeout for him. "I brought you some food, sir." She had seen the kitchen cabinets flying out of the second floor earlier, and it had worried her. Adam had some of the worst anger issues she'd ever seen, but even that was a little out of the ordinary for him.
Oh, thanks.
He accepted the bag. Lute peeked behind him at the mess he had started. "What are you up to?" Adam followed her gaze to the pile of broken glass, wood, and plastic that had started assembling in the middle of his entryway. He looked back at her with a nonchalant attitude.
Breaking stuff? You wanna, break stuff with me?
"Yes, sir. Yes, absolutely I do."
Cool. Could you grab my helmet for me?
"Yes, sir." She retrieved his helmet for him and followed him inside. "Is there a reason we're breaking your house, sir?"
Nah.
"Well, I just so happen to have some fireworks on hand, sir." The soldier stated with a completely straight face. Adam snorted.
Why?
He chuckled. She shrugged. "They were on sale."
I think that you and me should go to the tallest room in the building and see what it looks like when they go off indoors.
"And then we should reorganize all the furniture you don't like into the pool."
Call the other girls over. I'll order some pizza and we're gonna race this place to the ground.
Now where the heck did he put his phone?
There it is.
He picked up his phone and dialed his favorite restaurant.
Yo, I'm gonna need about...
He looked to Loot.
Does 50 sound like enough?
Maybe go with Steve to be safe.
60 pizzas. One of every topping and the rest of them cheese. What do you mean I can't order that many?
Adam thoroughly enjoyed destroying his house. He moved everything he planned on taking with him to the side of the curb so that it didn't end up burned or broken in the ensuing destruction. It wasn't quite the same as killing sinners together, but it still proved to be enjoyable. It got better when pizza, alcohol, and explosives were added into the mix. A few of his neighbors came over to see what the commotion was. A few of them gave him weird looks, but there were just as many that joined in when they were invited. Soon enough, the festivities attracted the attention of non-human angels, who immediately reported the chaos to the seraphim. Emily landed next to him in the tree he was sitting that overlooked the fire.
Adam, what are you doing?
Arson.
He admitted without missing a beat.
Oh, is this some sort of human celebration type ceremony thing?
She asked so completely innocently. The ignorance of the seraphim would be adorable if it hadn't screwed him over so tremendously.
Not really, but it is fun. You want to give it a try?
No.
She giggled.
It looks a little violent for my taste, but thanks for the offer.
He took another bite of his pizza. He admired his girls happily dancing through the flames. They looked like they were having a blast. He was going to miss them.
So, why are you here?
Well, I hate to disturb the festivities, but we've gotten a lot of noise complaints and the fire is starting to scare people.
He nodded and chucked his food to the side.
Guess it's better to end it now before everyone gets bored anyway.
He stood up and flapped over to the tip of his house. Flames licked at his heels, but this was heavenly fire. It would not burn an angel. He tapped on the side of the glass with a fork, which by some miracle got the attention of everyone.
I'd like to thank you all for coming on such short notice. This has been a wonderful evening.
Thus began his speech. His words were met with applause and joyful hollering.
I'm sure you've all guessed by now I have not invited you all over for the sole purpose of destroying everything I own. I've seen so many of you grow into the best soldiers, the likes of which the universe has never seen before and never will again. I'm sure you will all go on to lead good lives, impressive lives.
He surveyed the reactions of his soldiers. It was always so hard to tell with their helmets on, but it seemed like the only one who was expecting any sort of bad news was Loot.
I hope the skills you have learned under me will translate well into whatever fields you run to next.
Now some of them were starting to realize that something was wrong.
The exterminations have officially been cancelled, and I will no longer be your leader. I am leaving in 2 days' time, and I'm probably never coming back. I don't know what exactly is going to happen to all of you now, but, write down anything you don't want to forget, and, yeah, that's all I got.
He chugged the last of his wine and portaled out of there before the fall could really start. He did not want to be around for that. Chapter 7. A Mild Interrogation. Loot was racing through the tranquil skies of a sleeping heaven. Where is he? Where is he? Her mind screamed at her over and over. It was a joke. It had to be a joke. They wouldn't just cancel the exterminations. They were her purpose. They were her reason for being. Who was she if not a soldier? Who was she if not Adam's second in command? Suddenly, she spotted him sitting on Sarah's roof. She flew down to him as quietly as she could in case he decided to teleport away before she got a chance to talk to him. Sir? She touched his shoulder and immediately received a left hook to the face.
Ooh, oh my god,
He immediately went to help her bandage her now broken nose. You have excellent reflexes, sir. She wiped the golden ichor away from her face.
You idiot! I told you not to sneak up on me!
He plops back down where he had been sitting. Loot sits next to him. They sit in silence for a moment looking at the stars. Heaven had no need for street lamps when the stars were this close. Nebulas and not quite so distant galaxies painted the night sky with light. Everything was so still, so quiet. Complete tranquility. Loot took her helmet off. A mild breeze flowed through her platinum blonde hair. She broke the stillness. Is it true? Adam grunted when he was roused from whatever thoughts he had been lost in. Is it true? She repeated. Are the exterminations really over?
Yeah, you think I would lie to you?
No, sir. She had been hoping this was all some stupid prank, but he was completely serious. You said you were going somewhere. Where?
Don't use the interrogation voice on me,
he said.
I'm going to.
His words stopped when he tried to say the word hell.
You are not to tell anyone.
Sarah didn't even need to be in the same room as him to give him an order.
You are not to tell anyone about the marriage.
He hated that she could invade his brain whenever she wanted. She hadn't done it since he was human. He had forgotten how itchy it made him feel.
Somewhere far away.
Where?
I can't say.
Have I been there before?
Yes.
Am I allowed to visit you?
No.
Are you allowed to visit me?
I'm not sure.
What did you mean when you said, write down anything you don't want to forget?
You're smart, you'll figure it out.
Why won't you give me a straight answer?
'Cause gay answers are funnier.
Answer the question.
I told you not to interrogate me.
Answer the question.
No.
Are you in danger? Adam didn't say anything. Lute's careful eyes flicked across his face and body language, searching for answers. She wasn't normally one to pry, but there was something insidiously evil happening. She just couldn't put her finger on what it was. She looked back to the city. Angelic glass was specially designed to catch the starlight and reflect it so that every window looked like a portal directly into the heart of space.
Lute,
Yes, sir.
I'm going on a mission of sorts. I'm going somewhere that's not so nice, to say the least. And I don't get to come back unless something really bad happens.
He stopped. He hadn't been vulnerable like this in such a long time. It was terrifying and hard. He was only able to keep going because he knew that in a day or two, Lute would forget all of this. That was the same as if it never happened. That made it easier. Sir,
I need you to not forget me. I need someone to remember that I'm a person.
Sir, I could never forget you, she replied immediately. How could I forget you? You practically raised me.
No, Lute, you don't understand.
He put his head in his hands. He was on the verge of panicking again. He had one shot to get Lute in his corner, and he was failing. He was getting desperate.
I'm scared.
Lute's eyes widened with shock. Her head snapped to the side to look at him. He wasn't joking. She had never known him to be scared, ever.
Look, I need you to write everything down. I mean it, not just online. Print it out, hide it, set reminders to look at it, and don't tell anyone. Trust no one else.
Lute blinked a few times. She summoned a piece of paper and a quill and started scratching out a summary of their conversation. Seeing her write brought Adam some comfort. The tightness in his chest relaxed. Do we have any allies at all? Anyone I could go for more information?
Emily. Emily is safe, but loose-lipped. You can get information out of her, but don't let her know how much you know. Always play dumb.
What about Sarah? He shook his head but didn't elaborate. Lute wrote all of it down. Will there be any way to get in contact with you?
I don't know. They might not let me keep my phone, and even if they do, I might not be able to get any reception down there.
Lute took note of that. Down there, that probably meant Earth. Heaven wouldn't send an innocent man down to hell for any length of time. Hell was for the irredeemable. There was no point in sending prophets there to preach.
Well,
He stood up and stretched himself out.
it's time for me to go inside. I've been putting off my lecture for long enough.
You can stay at my house if you want to, she offered. He wanted that. He wanted to go with her. It would be really nice to spend his last night with someone he loved so much. He wanted to tell her everything, but there was a problem. He had admitted to her that he was scared. Angels aren't supposed to be scared. Fathers aren't supposed to be scared. He wasn't supposed to be scared. Be not afraid. You will be an example to all men. Who was it that said that to him? Just like he had done at the party, he refused to stay for the fallout of his words. He wasn't emotionally equipped to deal with the consequences, good or bad. So he said his goodbyes, dismissed her, and went inside for Sarah to yell at him. That was something he was at least used to.